Hi, I'm Lieutenant Doug Nolte, and welcome to this edition of Behind the Badge, your behind-the-scene look at what's going on with the Wichita Police Department. Well, today we've got Lieutenant Kevin Vaughn. Kevin is the commander over the SWAT team as well as in charge of City Hall security. And Lieutenant, appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that we wanted to talk about, and with you being over the SWAT team and a lot of tactical situations, are some recent events in which we've had active shooters throughout the country. Fortunately, in Wichita, we really have not had an active shooter. I know a couple weeks ago at Burlington Coat it was pretty close. But as a commander, as a police officer, what do you do to prepare for an active shooter situation, both as just a regular police officer, but as a SWAT commander?
Well, actually, the Columbine incident changed everything for law enforcement. The tactics changed. It used to be surround and wait for the tactical teams to get there. After that, I guess law enforcement realized that we can't wait for the SWAT teams. The patrol officers have to be trained to move in if there is active killing going on. There is a misconception that we haven't really had an active shooter here in Wichita. However, in the 80s, we did, Goddard, Kansas did experience an active shooter incident, but it's been so long ago that we tend to forget about that. Just like you said, the Burlington Coat Factory incident a couple weeks ago, it started maybe as an active shooter, but it actually was contained when officers got there real quickly. We've been training our law enforcement for several years in this area, not only city but county and all small town agencies, to respond to an active shooter and work together no matter what agency they're from.
Well, and you key in on something that I think is important for citizens to realize, is that we do see this as something that is a partnership amongst law enforcement, because if it does happen in a smaller community that may not have the police resources, we're going to have to be able to go in. Can you tell us a little bit about, in terms of, you said, you know, Columbine changing things and then changing how we train, what are the police departments, not only the Wichita Police Department, but other departments doing to train to actually deal with this?
Well, like I said, several years ago we started designing the training to teach patrol officers, basically SWAT tactics, how to move in and take care of the threat. Our main goal is to move to the sound of gunfire and to stop the threat or stop the killing. Not only, like I said, not only Wichita, but Sedgwick County Sheriffs, all small town agencies attended this training. We put on simunitions training where
tell our listeners what simunitions are.
Actually, simunitions is about as close to gunfire as you can get. It's kind of like a paintball system. However, you use the same type of weapon that officers are equipped with. The rounds cycle just like a real gun. You get the sound of the gun, and you get the pain of the bullet if you get hit with it. However, you get to leave that day with just some bruises.
And I have been hit by one. It does hurt.
It does hurt.
So the training then really centers around getting them thinking tactically how to go in, isolate where the shooter is, and then basically take care of the threat.
Correct, and that's done under stress. I know you can go in there with fake weapons, and it'd be just like when you were growing up. I got you first, you got me. Well, this way you know if you get hit, and it adds that stress of that pain penalty.
Very good. Well, I think probably what then becomes kind of a next series of questions is how in the public, and I think back to the Columbine, or not the Columbine, excuse me, the Aurora Theater shooting, where people obviously were there for, you know, a good time to be entertained. Certainly some unique circumstances being in a dark movie theater. But what can someone do to prepare themselves to survive an active shooter situation?
If you find yourself, we'll say a mall or any large gathering where this could occur, there's three basic rules that we suggest: run, hide, or fight. The run is the very first thing you want to do. Run away from the incident. You hear shooting, you see it, run, get out of the building, get to a safe place. The second alternative is to hide. If you can't get out, your exit's been blocked, or for some reason you can't leave, you have small children that can't run, something like that, find a place to secure yourself, maybe a locked closet, hallway out of the view of the suspect, and just try to hide and be quiet. Silence your phone, put it on vibrate so you don't start getting phone calls, and call 911 and try to let them know where you are. Third alternative would be the last resort, and that's fight. If you're cornered, find whatever you can, surprise the suspect as he comes around a corner, hit him, whatever, but that's the last alternative.
Well, and certainly some great advice there. I think that we talk a lot in law enforcement about situational awareness. What can you say about just preparing when you are going out into public, thinking about where you're going to be and how to prepare? A lot of people probably don't think about their surroundings.
No, they don't, and that's one thing we discuss too, even with our law enforcement officers. Always be aware of your surroundings, even when you're off duty, you're out in the public, you're in restaurants, always know your exits, know where the restroom is, the kitchen, somewhere where you could hide if you have to. And probably like you do too, when you go to a restaurant, you sit facing the door so you can see people coming in.
Sure, absolutely.
Just out, walk into your car, always be aware of your surroundings. If something doesn't look right, it probably isn't. Go back inside, get with somebody.
Well, and then you certainly brought up the fact of telephones and making sure that you're not standing out, because I think one of the things that we have to deal with now that maybe 5 or 6 years ago wasn't such a problem was with this sort of stuff happening as it unfolds, phones going off, people checking on you. You kind of do stick out if your phone's making noises or if it's obvious that it's going on. So I think, again, planning and knowing where you are and what you have with you is certainly important. In terms of, you talked about SWAT response, I think there's probably a lot of people that think in these situations, well, we'll get the SWAT team involved and they'll be there. Talk a little bit about how a SWAT response kind of comes together, and is it a quick thing that you guys are immediately there? Is it something that takes a little bit of time? Because I think you might be able to clear up some misconceptions there.
Yeah, a normal SWAT response or any situation where we're needed, you can probably get 2 to 3 SWAT officers there within 10 to 15 minutes, even sooner depending on their beat. We always have a SWAT officer on duty at some time. For the entire team to mobilize, get the trucks there, the equipment that they need for a full response, you're looking anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, because some people are coming from off duty, some are sleeping, and it depends on the time of the day. If it's daytime, you'll get them there a lot quicker. If we wanted to mobilize even more, up to 150 SWAT officers, you're looking at 2 hours to call in regional assets to get them here.
So I think Hollywood certainly, and maybe even some bigger cities that have full-time SWAT teams, you're not only tasked with City Hall security and Homeland Security issues, but kind of a side role you play as the SWAT commander, because you're not a full-time squad. Is that right?
Correct.
Well, in terms of the training and tactics that the SWAT team goes into and equipment, you guys have to be pretty proficient on that, because a lot of that equipment is high-tech. It's stuff that you just can't pick up and intuitively use because there's different aspects. Can you tell us a little bit about how you all train and prepare?
Yeah, our SWAT team, they currently train every other week. So we're getting about 16, average 20 hours a month of training. And they train on different disciplines every time. Could be shooting, could be rappelling, entries, search warrant stuff, barricade, hostage situations, negotiations. I mean, there's a whole list. And we constantly have to keep training on the same thing over and over. Other teams, we've actually since about 2000 have started reaching out to other teams in the region, and we try at least once every other year to do a regional training with the 150 SWAT operators in our South Central region.
Obviously the training's specialized, but while getting into law enforcement can be a challenge, you guys really take the best officers out there and allow them to be SWAT. Tell us a little bit about the process to become a SWAT officer. What's required?
Yeah, and there's not much turnover once you get on the team. Currently, right now, we're going through the application process to hire or to bring on another SWAT operator. We have one opening at this point. We've opened it up to the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office too. We have team members that are on our joint team. It's pretty lengthy process. You have to maintain 85% shooting scores over the last 3 years. Once you're on the team, you have to maintain a 90%, or you're kicked off the team. You have a PT test, the push-up, set-up, standard test.
And just out of curiosity, how many push-ups and sit-ups do you expect a qualified candidate to be able to do?
Well, it depends on your age. We go by age, but like for me, I'd have to do 40 because I'm fairly young. A lot.
Absolutely, so am I.
But the push-ups, set-ups, and the pull-ups, and the mile-and-a-half run, it's not scored. It's just a pass-fail. You have to get a 70% because if you can't pass that, you will not make the SWAT high-intensity test day, which is a day long. We relate that to our Hell Week that the military has, but we only have 1 day, so that's where we test them in that 1 day, and then they're put on a list. The top 25% get a interview, and then from there we establish our list.
Well, maybe one of these days where you have the high-intensity tryouts, we can bring our City 7 cameras out and just see from the outside what that might look like. I certainly won't be doing push-ups, I can assure you that. Well, I'll tell you, one of our goals here with Behind the Badge is to make it kind of a peek inside, and I think one of the things that we fielded a lot of questions both out at the Bureau and in our office up in the in the communication areas, how do we deal with these active shooters? So I really appreciate you coming in. I think those are some excellent tips in terms of what to do, whether that is to run and get out of that situation if there's an active shooter. If that's not a possibility, then to hide and conceal yourself in such a manner. And then ultimately, if you have to, fight your way out of that. So I think 3 excellent tips for our viewers out there. Well, I'd like to thank Lieutenant Kevin Vaughn for being our guest today and talking to us. And like I said, maybe we can bring our cameras out to your next high-intensity training tryout. And as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in and keeping an eye on what's going on in the police department. And we will see you next time on the next issue of Behind the Badge.